And hello there, this is Izixs. I'm doing something a little different for today's video, so let's get right to it. I'm someone who enjoys a number of different types of media, and who likes to create connections between some of the ideas presented in the multiple different franchises. Sometimes it's thematic, but sometimes the items I find myself focusing on may offer up a opportunity for speculation and fan theory. And I do love me a good fan theory. And thus here I present my crazy fan theory relating Full Metal Alchemist and Bioshock. First off, a brief few notes. I am only drawing from, on one side, the anime series Full Metal Alchemist, which ran from 2003 to 2004, and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which ran from 2009 to 2010. This does not include the manga, standalone movies, or any other Full Metal Alchemist related media, as I'm at best only marginally familiar with them. And so this fan theory only applies normally to the two series and not the other media, unless it just happens to fit in with things really well. Which I'll leave that up to you guys to figure out if it does or not. And yeah, so similarly, on the Bioshock side, this only includes the video games Bioshock, Bioshock 2, and Bioshock Infinite, including the two Burial at Sea DLCs. So first up, Full Metal Alchemist. Both anime series follow the adventures of Edward and Alphonse Elric, two young alchemists who are, for the most of the series, are focused on finding ways to restore their bodies after an attempt at human transmutation. The specifics of these adventures varies between the two series, but most prominent in both series the magical science of alchemy that allows for the manipulation of matter and energy to do fantastic things, provided that there is an equivalent exchange of some sort done to enact the effect. There's also the notion of the gate, which has a relation to alchemy, the exact nature of which seems to vary between the two series to a degree. In both series, the gate appears to an alchemist who has attempted human transmutation. The alchemist is sent into a white void and placed before the gate. The gate opens and all sorts of dark, unspeakable horrors appear to reside within. In the first series, the gate was a portal to another world, from which energies from that other world would transfer through to power the alchemy of that particular anime's world. Another world similar to, if not exactly like, our world of Earth. This means the first anime's gate is a means of transportation of energy and matter between different realities. The gate of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is of similar construction, but has a different type of nature to a degree. On the far side is a dimension of information. As with the first series, attempts at human transmutation bring one before the gate. Whereas in the first series, a part of the alchemist is pulled through the gate upon encountering it, a sacrifice to the attempt at human transmutation. In Brotherhood, the alchemist is confronted by truth, a being which seems to moderate the gate's activities before being pulled through the gate. And then the gate extracts a toll from the alchemist equivalent to the knowledge they are there to obtain. Also an important note in Brotherhood is that each individual appears to have their own associated gate, as well as a few other large entities like the sun and the moon, or beings of equivalent existence such as Father. And if someone were to sacrifice one's gate, such as might happen in human transmutation, it would prevent that individual from performing alchemy any further, effectively cutting them off from the knowledge that the gate allows them to use. In both animes, a side effect is that those who enter the gate in any fashion also obtain the ability to perform alchemy without the use of the transmutation circle commonly required by alchemists. So in Full Metal Alchemist, you have individuals able to perform semi-magical feats via sufficiently advanced science magic and a theme of gateways that contain knowledge and other worlds. Now, what does this have to do with Bioshock? Because it also has individuals able to perform semi-magical feats via sufficiently advanced science magic, and a theme of gateways that contain knowledge and other worlds. Plasmids are established in the first Bioshock game. Plasmids expend a substance to create various effects, such as temperature changes, moving objects, summoning swarms of temporary existing life, and the like. Bioshock Infinite had a variant of the Plasmids, based off the same in-universe science, that had a similar collection of effects, and these were called vigors. For this discussion, I'll be defaulting to plasmids as the general term for both. It is important to note first that plasmids and vigors have different limitations. Specifically, plasmids require an individual to have excesses of substances called atom in order to acquire plasmids, and to use a substance called Eve to activate it. Generation and collection of atom is one of the primary ongoing parts of the setting of Bioshock and Bioshock 2. Vigors, on the other hand, did not require atom, and instead of Eve, used a substance called salt, which may be some sort of special chemical, or perhaps just normal salt. I don't recall it being specified in the game. So this gets to our first connection of sort. I propose that the alchemy of Full Metal Alchemist and Plasmids are at the core the same thing. Both cause changes in the physical world relating to configurations of magic energy, both expend something, and both require a sufficiently complex structure in order to function. For the Plasmids and Vigors, it's a biochemical catalyst chemical. In Full Metal Alchemist, it's alchemy circles, or, for those with exposures to the gates, their own bodies are reconfigured to be that very structure. A bio circle. In Bioshock Infinite, the player encounters a number of unusual effects. These are including alterations to the world, portals to other places and times, objects temporarily existing in the world of the player, and individuals who appear to be able to use these effects in various unusual fashions, with or without technological assistance. The tears, as they're referred to, were first generated by Rosalind Lutece, who found a way to mechanically generate one. This allowed her to make contact with an alternative reality version of herself named Robert Lutece. They joined forces and created a number of advanced devices that allowed the city of Columbia to float, and much more. They became agents of one Zachary Comstock, and were sent on a mission prior to the game's start to acquire for him an heir from an alternative universe. Their technology is implied to have made Comstock sterile, and thus this was an attempt to find him a new heir of his own bloodline. They entered another reality, acquired the child of an alternative universe's version of himself, and returned to Rosalind's universe. This child was named Elizabeth and was, in several different pairs of parallel realities, injured by the process of passing through the tear. For those where she survived, the trend was that this severance of part of her body by the tear granted her the ability to manipulate the tear without the use of technology. This is in some ways similar to those confronted by the gate in Full Metal Alchemist to be able to perform alchemy, despite not having a circle. At a later point in time, Rosalind and Robert had managed to advance their technology to open up tears through time and space, and allowed them to observe the future of Columbia, and the destruction Comstock would enact on the world. They decided to stop this. Comstock caught wind of their plan, and the scientists got caught up in their device after it was sabotaged, and thus seemingly were lost in space and time. However, the effect was that they were simply existing across multiple realities, places, and times seemingly simultaneously, or in some sort of weird flux existence. It's not entirely clear. From this position of being shattered across multiple realities, they sought to continue their plan to stop Comstock, kicking off the events of Bioshock Infinite. Elizabeth, who, remember, has the ability to interact with tears without the use of technology, was contained by Comstock and her powers suppressed through various advanced forms of technology. That is until she is rescued by Brooker DeWitt in the eventual destruction of the suppression device, at which point she attains full mastery and knowledge of tear manipulation and goes about exploring and sorting out various parallel realities. It is implied from the end of the game and the end of the second part of the Burial Sea DLC that Elizabeth's path from that point forward was to bring an end to the horrors of Columbia and Rapture in all possible realities, perhaps collapsing the divergent timelines down to only one timeline in the end. An important side note, the tears generated in Columbia via the technology or Elizabeth's presence, be it intentional or not, allowed for the exchange of knowledge between Jeremiah Fink in Columbia and Yi Shuchong of Rapture, allowing for the spread of plasma technology, among other things, between the two time periods and locations. So in Bioshock, like Full Metal Alchemist, you also have unusual gateways that connect places and possibly parallel worlds together that also allow for the exchange of information. So there's at the very least a theme going on here between the two works. And this is the thesis of my video here today. The original timeline is that of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. The events of the anime take place, leaving Edward without his alchemical gateway, and thus unable to perform alchemy. I propose that, at some point after the series, they find a solution, destroy all the gates except one, and tie all alchemy to that particular gate. In order to do this, they have to change truth into that universal gate. But the cost that truth, the being that is, demands for this is that they change the rules. Pulling everyone into one gate would have to be retroactive, and yet still plausibly lead to this agreement being made in some form to prevent any sort of temporal paradoxes. Truth is in some ways very similar to Elizabeth, while partially suppressed in Columbia, in that it is able to manipulate gates, but can't necessarily create them itself, simply acting as a gatekeeper to the knowledge within. And so Truth sees this as an opportunity to gain full mastery of the gates. Truth transmutes the world, or perhaps the entire cosmos, into this alternate reality of the first anime, destroying the gates of all the individuals in the process as part of the exchange. And thus leaves one gate, similar MO to the Brotherhood version, but no visible truth. But all sorts of crazy still going on with the remaining gate, trying to motivate the heroes to close the implied time loop, which they would eventually fail at. The changed nature of the gate also begins to open up the barriers between other alternative dimensions, most specifically one where that last gate was also forced to be destroyed, and thus easy access to alchemy becomes non-existent. And without it, there is apparently no alchemy at all. At the end of the first series, Edward is trapped in this alternative world, which again appears to be our Earth, while Al is trying to figure out a way to get him back. The next bit of my speculation, the next bit of the connecting story, is that Al, in his attempt to get his brother back, seeks out the truth behind the nature of the gate, to finally understand it so as to retrieve his brother, and basically circumvent all the difficulties preventing him from doing so. This results in him attempting to pull Ed back through, but in doing so collapses the gate of truth throughout all of time, effectively ending his home universe and spawning the parallel world where there is no gate, and no truth, but from which the fundamental underlying structure of alchemy is still technically possible. It's just that there's no presence or usable structure readily available to motivate it. Perhaps the two of them find themselves on this world, and end up providing some of the technological research needed for one Yi Shuchong's own research. After all, they might not know much about building interdimensional portals, but they could certainly help turn unique patterns of biochemistry into the fundamentals of alchemy, given enough time, and given their knowledge of the workings of the gates. This alchemy into Plasmids technology is then observed by Fink through the tears generated by Elizabeth and Columbia, allowing Fink to create vigors. The Elrics, even if they do exist in this version of the world, don't directly have a connection to the technology of the Lutesses, other than through the destruction of their home timeline. And it is they, the Lutesses, that spawn the multitudes of alternative worlds via their windows into the present, future, and conceivably the past, chalking it up to quantum mechanics and the uncertainty principles in a kind of co-opt of science, honestly. And yes, from here, the various alternative worlds of Bioshock happen, and are eventually collapsed into one reality by Elizabeth, as she seeks to rein in the damage that herself, the Lutesses, Comstock, and DeWitt have all ended up generating in the end. And perhaps herself ends up separating into her physical body, which completes the task of eliminating Comstock and its consequences as best she can, and a new version of truth. Or perhaps even the enlightened, all-powerful side of Elizabeth becomes the original truth. But that may be a bit of a stretch for all this already. So, in short, the brothers Elric make a deal with Truth to alter the form of their universe. Truth agrees and does so, creating a new timeline that echoes the first up until the necessary logical conclusion, where it varies enough that instead of enforcing the new status quo, Ed is tossed into an upcoming version of reality. Al tries to fix that, destroys their home timeline entirely by locking out alchemy throughout history, generating this new, more familiar Earth in the process. If they survived, they help in the creation of Plasmids, which contributes to the events of all three Bioshock games. Meanwhile, Elizabeth, using her own gate powers, manipulates the shattered reality to create what seems to be a best possible outcome of all this manipulation of reality. And that's my crazy-ass fan theory linking Bioshock and Full Metal Alchemist. I might do more videos like this in the future. Let me know if you're interested. And of course, as usual, until next time, toodles! Woohoo!